All right, hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to paint a very simple flamingo. We're going to make it really bright and summery. So I'm going to start with my large square brush. It's like a 1-inch flat, and then we've got the primary colors in black and white and a 8x10 panel canvas. So anything like this will do, and really just paint on whatever you want. Now the first thing I'm going to do is make a light minty kind of green, blue-green. So I'm using yellow, a little bit of blue, and then a decent amount of white to make it nice and vibrant. And then what we're going to do is go to the upper left and just pull that in. I'm going to go all the way to the corner and then all the way down a little bit past the middle. So it's like I'm filling the upper left hand section. And then in the bottom, I want it more blue and white and less yellow. So I'm just going to add more blue and white and less yellow. So it changes the shade. And that's what I'm going to do down on the bottom, the right. And it's okay if some of the colors intermix, like that's no big deal. But notice I'm leaving it kind of splotchy. So once I have that, I want to fill in the gaps with some white. And I'm just doing like a diagonal little side to side brush stroke using the full width. You can do anything you like though. It's all just for fun. You can always just add more blue back in if it gets too much white. So you can go back and forth a little bit. But by the time I'm done plugging in the lighter color, I want to have the whole canvas covered. So there should be a little bit of paint everywhere. And at the end result, it's gonna look a little more greenish in the upper left and a little more bluish in the lower right. And then I'm just having some parts look a little lighter by adding more white in between the darker colors that we added in the beginning. So it's just one way to layer and create some fun texture in your painting. And then before you go on to the next step of layering, I'm going to let that go. You want to either blow dry your canvas or let it dry completely before we start layering. All right, and you'll know it's dry. You can touch it, no paint comes off on your hands, and then you're good to start layering. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is switch my brush because we use the big brush just to cover the background. And then I'm going to use a filbert. So something that looks like this, it's like a rounded top. It doesn't really matter what mine's about the size of my pointer finger, but you know, depends on your canvas size, how big you want to make it. And then we're just going to start with a light pink. So I'm doing white and red just to start, not too much red. I want to start with a lighter shade, not too dark and also not too white. I mean, you want it to be like, you know, see the pink, not too much white, but definitely on the lighter side. And then we're going to find the middle. So top and bottom, right and left, make a dot. That's going to be where we build the body out of. And then for their body, you're going to kind of go right over this space. I'm going to make a rainbow shape like that. And then from the bottom, like imagine this is going to be the tail here on the left. So if you want, you can feather a few brush strokes out like that. Just to be like, okay, this is where the tail is going to be. And then we're going to pull underneath and just kind of make a up and then a down. And then it's going to go to the other side. So you have that rainbow. The tail is here. So we added some brush strokes just so we know what's going on. And then the neck is going to go from this space. We're going to pull up and to the left towards the center line. So see where the center is. And then I'm going to hook it around. So you're making like an S shape. And it's just gonna just make a hook. And then from right in the middle of the body, so we know this is the middle because we put our middle dot right there. Just go below that and make a little bit of a triangle pointing down, or an arrow pointing down. And then we're gonna pull the leg down from that. And then maybe it has like another little notch, like a little oval type shape right there. And then we can pull even further down from that. So then that's going to be their feet, but we're just going to let their feet extend to the bottom. So don't worry about doing anything too crazy with that. And then we can do the second leg right behind it. Maybe it's moving a little different, like that. So you can kind of play around with the shapes of how those legs are going. It can be kind of, fun. And then we can color it in a bit. Maybe I'm going to add a little more white for my first coat and just notice how I'm going with that rainbow shape, looping up and over to the left, just to fill in. And then we want to define the head a little bit more. So I'm still using that same pink, but right at the top right here, I'm going to make right where the neck bends right here. I'm going to fill out the bottom part of that to give him a little face. So you're going to come and make an oval at the top. So the top of the head could come up a little bit more. And then this part right here. And then we want to make that beak, which is going to be a little bit more bent and come out. Notice how it bends back in towards the neck. And it's going to even come close right up to the neck touching. We're going to outline it so it'll make more sense. But notice how I can take even more white and I can go to the top and just pull some little feathers coming kind of off the top there, bushling up a little bit. Bushling. I said bushling, I don't know if that's a word. But I'm just letting it be a little more textured and just adding little like brush strokes of white. So fun. And then I can add some highlights to the right side. So maybe I want to go to the top of the first leg right here. Maybe this is the one that's in the front. And then I can also highlight a little bit along the left side of the neck, a little bit. A little bit on the top of the head here, so you can always add a little bit of a different shade of pink top of the head. And then I can add some more red and make a different shade of pink. So we're just kind of playing with these pink colors for a second. And maybe I want a little bit more brightness on the tail, so I can add some more. But notice I'm doing it more towards the underside, have more red. And then I'm going to put it on the opposite side of my highlight. So I'm going to put a little bit of a darker shade on the right and under the face. And just notice I'm adding some fun brush strokes in there. It can be really abstract. We'll do a few layers. And then maybe you want to create like a little bit of a coral pink. So I'm going to add some yellow into my pink. And then that creates a different color, more of a coral. Now, if at any time you need to, you can always add some more white to help it stand out more, or if it's not really standing out, blow dry your bird, blow dry it, and then layer. So while that dries a little bit, I want it to dry. I'm going to put some details on the face, and you do want to move into a smaller round brush to get any details in. Just make it a little easier on you. And then we're going to go to the face, and we're going to add some details to make it look more interesting. Now, the eye itself, we'll do this with black. So I'm going to go to the tip of the beak, and I want the tip of the beak to be black. So I'm going to go ahead and outline it with black, just the tip. Just outline it, and then it's going to go right to where it starts to curve, and then it's going to taper off. So I'm going to stop the line there. And then what I can do is make another line coming out towards the top here of that, and pull all the way up towards the face, like that. And then I can pull another little one coming out right here. So it's kind of creating a little V shape that comes out here. And then you can go ahead and color in this bottom part, the tip of the beak. And then we want to put like a little circle for the eye, which is going to be right on the head right here. So I'm going to make a little circle. And then inside of it, I'm going to put a little black dot. And then we can create some shadow colors. So I'm going to take some red with a little bit of blue. So that kind of makes like a purpley color. And then even just a little bit of yellow. So we're creating this. And I want to add more redding. Again, I don't want it to be too kind of like a brownish or like maybe a burnt orange kind of color we want to make. So it's going to be kind of dark, but it should have sort of a brownish orangish undertone to it. And then we want to make the back leg look a little darker. So this leg's going to be our back, and I'm just going to go in with that shadow color and add a little bit to this leg here, the back. And you can do a little bit to like one side of the other leg, maybe not as much. You can do a little bit of this color to the underside. And if you want to tone it down, add more red. It'll tone it down. So maybe I tone it down a little bit. But maybe I want the underside or the right side of the neck to have more of a shadow. So you can really just plug in these more interesting colors. So anytime you want to dull your color or create shadow colors, that's when you start mixing the primaries together to create darker colors. But they're subtle. So I'm putting a little bit under the belly to create a shadow down there, but I'm just streaking it in really soft. And then I really want to get this under the neck, under the chin, and maybe even just like outlining the face a little bit here, where the beak comes to the head, making a little outline right up to where the eye comes in. And then you can pull in that shadow color into the feathers a little bit if you want. And then you can always clean the brush and soften things up a little bit. So I might want to create some more highlight areas. So I'm cleaning the brush all the way. And then I'm going to go in with the pure white. And this is where I can come in and add some really bright colors towards the top of the bird. Little streaks. And then maybe even to like the right side of the leg a little bit. You can use it to tone down the shadows a little bit. Should I tone that down too much? I'm gonna come back in with the shadow. And you can kind of go back and forth a little bit. I'm gonna take the white again, and then I want to add that into the beak a little bit, right around the black, towards the top of the nose. Or the beak. I keep calling it a nose. And I'm taking that white right up to the eye, almost like a triangle pointing up to it. And then you can add a little dab of white inside the black. So it's kind of like black, then white, and then more black. And you can always tone that black line down by adding like a white circle around it and thinning it out a little bit if you need to. You can always thin things out with painting a little bit of white over it. And then you can even enhance your highlights with a little bit of white. Really anything can happen there. And then you can always come back to your pink. Add more red to your brush. Come in and layer. Or add more of that orangey kind of color. You know, you can do as many brush strokes as you like. It's really fun to play. I'm adding a little bit of yellow into the red. Just like a fiery red, or an orangey red. Just add it around all the places we've added before, so you can always come back and add more to what we've put in there. And then go back and forth a little bit. Maybe there's some more white in there. Let it be kind of thick and crazy. Let the colors kind of dance together. Have some fun. Cleaning the brush. Might want to add a little more of this peachy color to the head here. You can always play around. Adding a little more white though, but I want more orange in the head. Or peach, it's like a reddish orange. And you can always go back to your shadow colors. So see how I want to add a little more back. So easy. Let your colors dance a little bit. And you can always come in with more just vibrant pink, just like red and white. So a lot of times I like to just establish my highlight colors and my shadow colors on top of this base color, which was just at first that light pink. And then you can go in and add different shades in between, like medium shades of pink or different shades of pink using different colors. So it's just very much a back and forth in a layering process. Once you decide where you want everything positioned, then you can just play. I might take some of that pink and add a little bit to the tip of the beak as like a highlight on the beak. And again, you can even add more white. But we're going to keep it really simple. So I'm just maybe add a little more red down here, more bright red with like a little bit of white in it, not too much. Just adding some texture. Let some of these brush strokes kind of flail out and be kind of crazy. It adds a little bit of movement if you let some kind of feather out a little bit more. Then that's it. I don't want to take it too far. I just want to make a simple, super simple little flamingo that anybody can paint. So you can always reshape and redo things, but I just invite you to give it a try, see how you like layering the paint like this, see just how you can make simple shapes and turn it into something like that looks like a flamingo. So hopefully you had fun and enjoyed. Make sure to give a like and subscribe and share so that we can spread the joy of painting. And thanks so much for painting with me, and have a beautiful rest of your day. Bye.